Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. One of the two states which is being watched keenly by everyone as two more phases of polling are left in the Lok Sabha elections is Bihar. With 13 of the 40 seats yet to go to polls in Bihar, the question is whether the BJP, after its split with the Janata Dal, be able to hold its own. Also, if the Modi wave, which is sought to be generated across the country, will have an impact on the final tally which the BJP will be able to muster. The same question which is being faced in Uttar Pradesh about whether a wave can override the caste, which is an intrinsic part of Bihar politics. Another question is whether Lalu Yadav, who had been marginalized, is on a comeback trail, and how strongly. We will discuss all this today with Neelabh Mishra, editor Hindi Outlook, Shaibal Gupta, member secretary Asian Development Research Institute in Patna, Sheela Bhatt, senior editorial director news, therediff.com, and Professor Subodh Malakar of School of International Studies, JNU. Welcome to all of you. Shaibal Gupta, I would like to come to you first. Is there a wave in Bihar? You know, the kind of wave which the Modi wave or the BJP wave which everybody is talking about. What is the situation in Bihar?
There is no doubt that there is a stirring in Bihar as far as Modi is concerned, but I don't see the wave as such, because it is still substantially a media-sponsored wave and it is mainly limited to the urban enclaves. But as far as the rural area is concerned, I am not very sure about the wave. I mean, but there is, of course, there is a stirring. There is a realization at all sections, and there is a lot of talk about it, because there is a media blitz of such an unprecedented nature. You open any channel, there is a advertisement for Modi, so one cannot ignore this thing.
Okay.
Now, whether this media blitz is getting converted into wave or not, that we'll only know after the election results.
Shaibal,
but of course, there is a stirring, but I don't think there is a wave.
Shaibal, the question is that after the breakup between the JDU and the BJP, the question is that whether BJP, for a long time BJP has been fighting in alliance with the JDU, or before that the Samta Party. Now, on its own, what are the challenges which the BJP is facing?
No, you see, in 2005,
right,
in the context of Bihar, when NDA came to power, it was essentially a coalition of extreme. From upper caste to
you're talking of the assembly.
They were part of this coalition.
You're talking of the assembly elections.
No, yeah,
2005
assembly election,
yes.
And that coalition continued in
right.
2005, 2009, and even 2010 assembly election.
Right.
Now that coalition is broken.
Right.
And now essentially in the context of Bihar, there are three formations which has emerged. One is a coalition of the articulate section of the upper caste. Other is the coalition of one section of the articulate upper backwards. And the third is coalition of the non-powerful.
Right.
Here I would refer about the lower backwards, that is called Annexure 1 in the context of Bihar, or EBC, or for example the Mahadalit, Pasmanda Muslim to a great extent. And there is a very interesting constituency which has emerged in Bihar, that is the women's constituency.
Right.
One has to take into cognizance. So,
okay.
So they are not articulate. So essentially there are three formations. And in some sense, this is going to be the paradigm shift election in the context of Bihar, because there were a couple of paradigm shift elections in Bihar. For example, in 1967, when for the first time there was articulation of the backwards in a significant manner, which was seen.
Right.
But there was a decisive change in politics only in 1995 election. Though Lalu Yadav came into power in 1991, but essentially there was a paradigm shift election in 1995 when the assertion of the backward was complete and full.
Right.
Then the 2005 election was also a paradigm shift election where there was some sort of a coalition of extreme in the context of Bihar. Now, I consider 2014 election to be another paradigm shift election where the assertion of the non-powerful who are not articulate, to what extent that coalition gets reflected in the votes. So, in that sense, this is going to be another paradigm shift election.
That needs to be closely watched. I'm sure you're talking of the Mr. Shaibal.
16th May.
Shaibal, I'm sure you're talking of the JDU and how it will perform. We'll come back to you, Neelabh. See, repeated paradigm shifts in Bihar. Now, Shaibal is talking of another paradigm shift now. So, the question is, will BJP able to stand on its own feet? Because this is a test for the BJP now in Bihar. Would you agree with that? A test. See, to put things in perspective, 23 seats. BJP had won 23 seats in 1999. In 1998, it had won 20 seats. And in the last Lok Sabha, that's 2009, they have 12 seats. So the question is, will they be able to retain 12 seats, or will they be able to cross those 12 seats, or will they come down?
Well, I won't go into seats because, but in terms of vote shares,
yes,
and also in terms of big picture. If you look at the big picture, the big all India picture, I will come to Bihar a bit later. Then I definitely feel that Bihar has slowed down Modi's Rath, which was, I mean, if you consider 20 seats a wave in Bihar, then what would you say 23 out of 25 seats in Rajasthan?
Right.
So that Rath is definitely slowed down when it comes to Bihar, substantially slowed down. And there you have this unique feature of Bihar.
When you say it is substantially slowed down, yes, on what basis are you saying that it is substantially slowed down? What are is this the ground report which are coming up, or the enthusiasm? Because as Shaibal was talking about, there is apparent enthusiasm for Modi, BJP, and all that.
I would say, I mean, there are two types of mobilization, and I would compare, though it's not a perfect comparison, compare it with Delhi elections. Where there were two parallel waves running. One was a BJP wave,
right,
and the other was a more silent Aam Aadmi Party wave,
right,
which till the last nobody was sure about how it would translate into votes or seats, but you could feel both the things. Similarly, in Bihar now, you can feel both. You can feel a BJP, I won't call it wave or anything, but I would say a stirring or not even a surge, but yes, a buzz, a BJP buzz. You can feel that, number one. Number two, but you can also feel different other buzzes in Bihar. For instance, there is a counter BJP mobilization.
Right.
Now, to what extent is it going to be divided among these two sections?
Right.
Two sections of OBCs. Muslims also, I mean, my gut feeling is that probably this time the division between Pasamanda and the other Muslims, upper caste Muslims, is not going to be as sharp as it was expected. So, and there are a number of, these are all India reasons.
You're talking of a polarization within the Muslim community towards a particular, one of the two.
Yes, one of the two aspects. But then it might vary from constituency to constituency. And the upper caste vote base of BJP is also nebulous. Nebulous in the sense that in certain constituencies, probably it would, not stick to the BJP core. For instance, I'm sure, take for instance Rajputs. Rajputs would vote differently in certain constituencies. For instance, Vaishali, where they have a strong even RJD Rajput candidate. And possibly in Buxar also. So there are these constituency-wise variation.
So the BJP cannot take it for granted that majority of the upper caste votes is in its bag.
Yes, and this social equation which Shaibal was talking about, this social equation is not uniform across Bihar. Bihar votes very differently when you move east, and when you come west, it's a different Bihar. When you move south again, it's slightly different Bihar. When you move north, as you border Nepal, then again it's slightly different. There are certain cross currents, for instance, take for instance JDU vote base, the silent vote base. You can feel it in Champaran and you can also feel it in South Bihar. But then the social nature of that base is very different in these two extreme corners of Bihar.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you would find what I see is a fractured kind of verdict in Bihar, which won't necessarily go and certainly not, not necessarily. Why necessarily? It won't give BJP a clean sweep.
A clean sweep. I mean,
yes.
whether Mr. Malakar, Professor Malakar,
or even a substantial number
Professor
of
Malakar,
seats.
the question is, when we look, talking of Bihar, the comparison with UP, the similar kind of situation, caste factors working hugely in both these states, but there is an attempt to override this caste factor by this wave, or generating this pro-Modi effort. Do you think that there is any similarity between UP and Bihar in this situation?
No, there is difference between Bihar and UP, because the social formation in Bihar is quite different from UP. Whereas Kapuri Thakur always gave the importance to an Annexure 1 that is called the Ati Pichda, extremely OBC, and the identity emergence of the OBC Ati Pichda has come up to an extent where in UP it has not come.
No, would you, this emergence of the extremely backward, is it, would you give credit to the way it has been mobilized by Nitish Kumar?
Yes.
And will Nitish Kumar be able to retain that extremely backward class?
That is what.
Is that the main question now?
That is why I am telling you there are 4 social formations who are behind Nitish Kumar today. And might be some kind of vacillations in that, but major the portions of those 4 social formations will be with Nitish Kumar. That is Pasmanda. As you remember, when he separated from BJP, and the Muslims of Bihar said it is Qurbani, and Qurbani is a very sacred thing in Muslims, and in that situation, the sentiment which of Muslims Nitish Kumar got, it was such kind of social formation of Pasmanda in that we can see, number 1. Secondly, the extremely OBC, which has got the marvelous kind of job and also representation in panchayats, and their identity has emerged. 40,000 job as teachers they have got, and 20% they have got in panchayat elections, and in panchayat which has broken the network of the Rashtriya Janata Dal, that is
the OBCs, the upper OBCs.
Upper OBCs. And this constitutes 35% of the total population of Bihar. This is extremely OBC. And third force is behind a ally of Nitish Kumar is Communist Party of India. And that allies has also certain kind of aid to the Janata Dal U. And fourth, as you know, Mahadalit. And Mahadalit, it has not, still I have not got, there is a split in Mahadalit. And so much so, this is 4 combinations are there. Might be some variations because of the propaganda led by Modi and this and that. But these 4 major sections have not yet been challenged by any other social.
And you don't expect them to move away from the JDU or Nitish Kumar, these forces?
These forces will not be that much largely moved away from Nitish Kumar.
Okay. Sheela, when you look at the larger picture, how important is Bihar for the BJP?
I think one of the most important.
And what is it that they're expecting from? What is it that you think the BJP expects from Bihar? And
no, I tell you, I went to UP in the first phase, Western UP, and I tell you, it's like France and Germany and totally 2 different countries. I think Bihar is having, there are emerging trends in Bihar which will fascinate us post-election. First of all, Bihar is coming as a most fascinating states of India now in this election. Why? I give you 2-3 reasons. One, Western UP, they played Hindutva card,
right.
But my God, BJP is so smart and they are not playing Hindutva card in that fashion the way they did it in Western UP. So my own hunch is that Bharatiya Janata Party is playing Narendra Modi's obesity card very settled in Bihar.
In Bihar.
And I have a feeling that it may happen so that Lalu Yadav's youth factor of Yadav, they may go for with BJP because of Modi's subtle obesity card.
We have seen this to a certain extent in UP also.
I think second, Bihar tells us that the importance of a smart coalitions. Lalu Yadav is coming out of dark.
Yes.
He is not in power. He is tainted, and still he is a hero and not the Modi in that sense.
Yes.
We are doing more stories on Lalu Yadav.
Right.
And third thing, I feel that I think Nitish Kumar will understand now that how without coalition to play a bigger game in Delhi is very difficult. I think, and you know what happened in Bihar is very interesting play of games by all parties. All parties are playing very nicely in the sense that as soon as Narendra Modi came, people themselves, I think, they have created another pole in form of Lalu.
Lalu Yadav.
So, and see, Lalu did not get that kind of the Modi kind of marketing support or even television support, I would say. But now we are reporting him. So I think Bihar is fascinating this time.
Shaibal, you know, the question is, you know, about Lalu Yadav. We did not, I mean, in the first round when we were talking, we did not discuss Lalu Yadav. Now, Lalu Yadav, has he re-emerged? Is he coming out of the shell which he has been in the last several years after his, you know, conviction and all these things? You think Lalu is the major factor in Bihar now?
Let me point out one thing which I mentioned earlier, that broadly there are three formations.
Right.
The upper caste and the one section of the upper backwards and the coalition of the non-powerful. Now, these are not really a watertight compartment.
Okay.
As Neelabh Mishra rightly said, that some upper caste may vote for some individual candidates.
Right.
Or Professor Malakar rightly said about the Communist Party.
Yes.
But I am not talking in terms of the political parties at this stage, but I am talking at a macro level, the social formation, which is not coherent necessarily in all parts of the state.
And cannot
it
be
differs from
no, are you trying?
But
are you
broadly that
no, one second,
now,
Shaibal.
coming back to
Shaibal.
Coming back to
Shaibal,
Lalu
one second. Are you trying? I want a clarification. Are you trying to say that, you know, these formations which you are talking about, three social formations which you are talking about, they necessarily cannot be identified with any of the political groupings? Is that what you are trying to say?
Yeah, is very much. So, broadly these three coalition is there. The first coalition is essentially represented by BJP. The second coalition of one section of the upper backwards is essentially represented by RJD. With the association of Congress, they have been able to bring some section of the upper caste as well.
Okay.
And the third is essentially represented by JDU, which is the coalition of non-powerful.
Right.
So, these are the broad coalition I am identifying. As far as your question on Lalu Prasad,
yes,
there is no doubt that after Lalu Prasad could latch on to Congress in the context of Bihar, he has become a formidable figure. He is on the provincial stage, because in the way the election campaign has been handled in the context of Bihar,
right,
it has almost become bipolar. It's between, say, BJP and the Congress.
Right.
So, in that context, I think Lalu Prasad has got a substantial resurrection in the context of Bihar. But one of the problems that you see is a very interesting in the context of Bihar. If you compare it with, say, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Odisha, the provincial popularity of the respective chief minister gets reflected in the parliamentary election as well.
yes.
But in the context of Bihar, as the opinion poll suggests, which I am not very sure, because the coalition of non-powerful is a very tangible entity, and they have not been tried in such a decisive manner.
Absolutely.
because they are not part of a broader coalition,
Right.
unlike in 2005 or 2010.
Right.
So this is going to be a paradigm shift election.
Okay.
So in this context, I feel
Okay.
that Nitish Kumar, when he opted out of the Prime Ministership and he was not part of the national coalition, in this background, I think Lalu
So Lalu has
Prasad
emerged.
got a resurrection in the context of
Okay,
Bihar.
and you know, it's very interesting. Neelabh, I know two, three things. One is about what Shaibal is talking about. You know, he used a word, very interesting word. He said, Lalu latched on to Congress. In fact, you know, sitting here, we thought that it's the other way around. So, you know, that has emerged. He says that Lalu and Congress together has made a powerful combination. How has it happened? Because in the last elections, we have seen them completely, almost, you know, just RJD got 4 seats and Congress got 2 seats. Now, how is it that they have re-emerged and, you know, being together? Last time, they were not together, but this time coming together. How has it become such a powerful combination? Or is it just a reaction to Modi? Is it something of a you know, reaction, anti-Modi forces coming together?
Look, what I would say is both latched on to one another.
Yes.
A. B, because Congress, for its relevance in Bihar, to retain any kind of relevance, needed a force. Now, there was a debate within the Congress whether to go with Nitish or to go with Lalu.
Right.
Because of certain factors, and also Nitish's own inclination, because he was taking a stand against both, because Nitish is trying to carve out a future politics.
Right.
And in fact, my gut feeling is that he would use this election for as a launching pad for the Vidhan Sabha election.
Absolutely.
Because he would tell the upper caste, look, you went out of this coalition, and you have caused the resurgence of Lalu Yadav. So if to save yourself Lalu Yadav, please leave the BJP, come back to me.
Okay.
Okay, so that is, I mean, put it simplistically. To put it simplistically,
that is his plan. Whether it will work out or not, we'll see.
Yeah, it might work. I mean, it has a great degree of plausibility.
Okay.
You know, the other thing is that there was a message which went with Lalu and Congress coming together. It's not that Congress had a great social base left in Bihar, but it had an image left in Bihar in terms of the macro picture at the all India level. There are 2 macro pictures here. One is macro when you talk of Bihar, and the other macro is when you talk of the national scene. Despite its isolation, Bihar has always been a state which has thought also nationally. You know, and so that national picture is going in favor of Lalu and Congress here, especially with respect to the Muslim community. That is why I said in these parliamentary elections, the division between Pasamanda Muslims and the upper caste Muslims may not be as sharp as it was thought.
But Mr.
There is another point. Yes. There is a third layer. You know, there are these middle level Muslims. Take for instance Bunkars, you know, which have been Ansaris, who are called Ansaris in Bihar. As a counterweight to the Muslim League, the Congress had built up this constituency, you know, and they fall in between. They are militant. So their self-identification is neither with the upper caste Muslims nor with the Pasamanda Muslims. And now they are also
in a big dilemma?
Figure. No, they are not in a dilemma.
They are no more in a dilemma.
They are no more in a dilemma. In fact, the withdrawal of JDU candidate from Kishanganj is an indicator, you know, and also in Bhagalpur probably they are, I mean, if you can see those currents, they are going with Lalu Yadav.
Okay. Professor Malakar, you know, the question now is, you have a different opinion about as far as Pasmanda Muslims are concerned, whether the narrowing of the gap of all kinds of Muslims are happening or not. But the question now is, you know, how do you think, how important is it for Nitish Kumar, these elections? Because, or we have been seeing in some states across the country where people are saying that we will vote for one party for the parliament elections, and we may come back to you in the assembly elections. But is it a big challenge for Nitish Kumar in these elections?
Of course, for Nitish Kumar it is big challenge because there are 3 formations today in Bihar. But 2 things for your information I want to tell you.
We are running out of time.
Just I am telling you, Ansari, as Neelabh told, Ansari is coming in extremely backward. And out of total Muslim caste, 18 castes comes in extremely OBC, one thing. Out of 23 in Dalit, only past one is left, 22 in Mahadalit. Yes. So these are the combinations. I want to say only one thing, that what is the social base of BJP? Number one, and where is the challenges for BJP? Only two things. Social base of BJP is the higher caste, upper caste, and secondly, affluent OBC also, this Baniya's class. Absolutely. And these are only two social bases, number one. Secondly, the challenges. Wherever BJP had won 12 seats, in that, the incumbency factor is also running, as if you will say, this is the two challenges for BJP today.
What Professor Malakar is saying is, he is talking of bureaucratic categories. I am talking of perceived identity of the caste. A. B. As far as BJP's social base is concerned, it's a base transferred from the Congress in one way. The other is BJP's social engineering is also very old in Bihar.
Exactly.
Take for instance Pasis among the Dalits. You know, it went with the Sanskritization process in certain sections, and I see it happening since 1967 in Bihar. And there is, even in the upper caste, you know, the process of secularization has stopped, has stopped. It's more a process of ritualization.
Absolutely.
And Hinduization, which you notice.
Shaibal, very quick last words to you. So, you know, when we're talking of at the end of it, is caste going to still be a major factor in these elections, or some kind of a wave can override caste?
No, I think when you talk about caste, it's not necessarily is a negative thing.
Right.
Assertion of a marginal caste is a result of some sort of a democratization. I think till 1967, upper backwards couldn't assert.
From Shaibal,
2005.
We don't have time.
This lower backwards are asserting.
So are you saying that all these factors will still make it a caste-based election?
Caste will also matter.
Okay.
But I think the things which has happened in Bihar is irreversible.
Okay.
The development which has taken place in Bihar, whoever comes in future, they will not be able to reverse it. They will have to create a new benchmark in future.
Okay.
For example, in the post-independence period,
we have completely run out of time, Shaibal. We have completely run out of time. We have completely run out of time. The fact is that Bihar is a very complicated state, and you could see it in today's discussion also, the kind of complication. But as Sheela Bhatt is saying, that this is going to be a fascinating election. We'll have to wait and watch how it will all emerge. There is this chief minister trying to hold on to his base. There is a former chief minister who is trying to regain his base, and there is one party which is trying to create a new situation in that state. We'll wait and watch what the final turnout will be. Thanks to all my guests, Shaibal Gupta from Patna, Sheela Bhatt, Professor Malakar and Neelabh Mishra. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend.